Hello guys, welcome to the History Vault YouTube channel today. I bring you another new video. Hope you like it. The year was 1942. The world was on fire. Across the Atlantic and the Pacific, the Second World War was raging with a ferocity that humanity had never seen before. In the United States, the entire nation had mobilized. Factories that once made toasters were making bullets. Car manufacturers were churning out bombers. But the war wasn't just being fought on the beaches of Normandy or the islands of the Pacific, it was being fought in the laboratories of America. In Rochester, New York, deep inside the research division of Eastman Kodak, a young, brilliant chemist named Dr. Harry Coover was feeling the pressure. The U.S. military had a specific, urgent problem, and they were looking to American industry to solve it. The problem was visibility. As the war became more mechanized, soldiers needed better ways to aim. The military needed clear, durable, plastic precision gun sights for their weaponry. Glass was heavy and fragile. They needed a new synthetic material that could be molded perfectly, remained crystal clear, and could withstand the chaos of combat. Dr. Coover and his team were experimenting with a family of chemicals known as cyanoacrylates. On paper, these chemicals looked perfect. They were clear. They could be manipulated. They seemed like the future of plastic optics. Coover set up the experiment. He synthesized the monomers, preparing to cast them into the shape of a gun sight. The team poured the liquid into the mold, expecting it to harden into a clear, usable lens. But when they tried to remove the gun sight from the mold, disaster struck. It was stuck. It wasn't just a little sticky, it was fused. The chemical had bonded to the mold with an intensity that was baffling. They tried to check the other equipment used in the mix. Everything was stuck. The moisture in the air had caused the chemical to polymerize instantly. The expensive laboratory equipment was ruined. The molds were destroyed. For a chemist trying to create a removable, clear plastic lens, this was a catastrophe. The material was deemed a total failure. It was too reactive. It was too messy. It was impossible to work with because it adhered to literally everything it touched. Frustrated, Dr. Coover noted the failure in his logbook. He categorized cyanoacrylates as useless for the project. The military got their gun sights from other materials, and Coover moved on. The substance that would eventually become a household name was shelved, labeled as a mistake, and forgotten in the archives of Eastman Kodak. Part 2. The Second Accident. Fast forward 9 years. The year is 1951. The war is over. America is entering a golden age of prosperity and technological expansion. We are entering the jet age. The focus of American military research shifted from gun sights to jet canopies, the clear bubbles that cover the cockpits of supersonic fighter jets. Dr. Harry Coover was now working at the Eastman Chemical Company plant in Kingsport, Tennessee. He was supervising a project to find a heat-resistant polymer for these jet canopies. Once again, the team began scouring the archives of chemical possibilities. Coover assigned a young researcher named Fred Joyner to test a list of different compounds. He wanted to measure their refractive index, essentially, how much they bent light. This was crucial for a pilot looking out of a cockpit. Joyner went down the list until he reached a familiar, abandoned chemical family: cyanoacrylates. Unaware of the disaster from 1942, Joyner prepared the sample. He placed a film of the liquid between two prisms of a refractometer. This was a high-precision, expensive piece of equipment used to measure light. He took his readings, recorded the data, and then went to clean up. He tried to lift the prisms apart. They wouldn't move. He pulled harder. Nothing. Panic set in. These prisms were worth nearly $3,000, a small fortune in 1951. In today's money, that's roughly $35,000. Joyner had just glued them together with a substance that seemed harder than the glass itself. Terrified of being fired, Joyner went to his boss, Dr. Coover, to report the accident. He expected a reprimand. He expected anger. Coover looked at the ruined prisms. He looked at the chemical bond. And then, a memory triggered in his mind. He remembered the gun sights in Rochester. He remembered the sticky mess that had ruined his molds during the war. For 9 years, Coover had viewed this stickiness as a flaw. It was a bug in the system. But standing there in a Tennessee lab, looking at the terrified face of Fred Joyner, Harry Coover had a Eureka moment that defines American innovation. He realized he had been looking at the problem backward. "Fred," Coover might have said, "I don't think we have a new plastic for jet canopies. I think we have the world's strongest glue." Part 3. The breakthrough. Most adhesives in the 1950s worked on simple principles. You applied a paste, and the solvent evaporated, leaving a hardened watching in black and white from their living rooms. In 1959, Coover was invited to appear on the popular television game show I've Got a Secret, hosted by Gary Moore. This was primetime entertainment. Millions of Americans where Coover walked onto the stage in his suit and tie, looking every bit the serious chemist. He had a small tube of Eastman 910 in his pocket. For the demonstration, the crew brought out a mechanism consisting of 2 metal bars. Coover applied a single drop of his glue to the end of one bar and pressed the other bar against it. He held it for a few seconds. Then the host, Gary Moore, grabbed onto the bottom bar. A winch began to lift the top bar. The audience gasped as Gary Moore was lifted entirely off the ground. He hung there, suspended in midair, his life relying on a single drop of glue. The bond held perfectly. But Coover wasn't done. The bond was so strong that during other demonstrations, they would lift entire cars. The image of the car hanging from a crane, held by a few drops of glue, became an iconic image of American strength and industrial might. The product was rebranded. Eastman 910 eventually gave way to the name we all know today, super glue, or crazy glue, depending on the specific formulation and brand. Part 5. From household fix to battlefield miracle. If the story ended there, with a handy glue for fixing broken teacups, it would still be a great story. But the most important chapter of superglue's history isn't about broken pottery. It's about broken bodies. In the 1960s, the United States entered the Vietnam War. It was a brutal, grueling conflict. Soldiers were suffering devastating injuries from bullets and shrapnel. One of the biggest killers on the battlefield was exsanguination, bleeding out before a medic could get the soldier to a field hospital. Traditional stitches took time. You had to clean the wound, thread the needle, and sew. In the middle of a firefight, with mud and rain and adrenaline, medics didn't have time. Dr. Coover and the researchers at Eastman Kodak knew that cyanoacrylates had a unique property. They were hemostatic. They stopped bleeding. They developed a special spray variant of the glue specifically for the military. It wasn't officially FDA approved for medical use in the civilian world yet, but in the jungles of Vietnam, the rules were different. When a soldier was hit in the chest or leg and bleeding profusely, a medic could whip out a spray can of cyanoacrylate. They would spray it directly over the open wound. Instantly, the moisture in the blood and tissue would trigger the chemical reaction. The glue would polymerize, creating a hard, waterproof shell over the wound. It sealed the ruptured blood vessels. It stopped the bleeding immediately. It was a liquid bandage that hardened into a synthetic skin. Countless American soldiers, hundreds, perhaps thousands, returned home from Vietnam alive because of that sticky mistake Coover made back in 1942. The glue bought them the precious minutes they needed to be evacuated to a MASH unit. Part 6. The Legacy. After the war, the medical use of superglue became more refined. While the industrial version, the stuff in your junk drawer, can be toxic to tissue if used deeply, researchers developed specific medical-grade versions, like Dermabond, that are used in surgeries today. If you've ever had a cut sealed shut instead of stitched, you have Dr. Harry Coover to thank. Dr. Coover worked at Eastman Kodak for his entire career, eventually becoming a vice president. He held 460 patents. He was a titan of American chemistry. But for decades, he was relatively unknown to the public, despite the fact that his invention was in almost every home in America. He never became a billionaire from superglue. Since he invented it as an employee of Eastman Kodak, the patent belonged to the company. He lived a comfortable life, but he did it for the science, not the royalties. In 2010, near the end of his life, Dr. Harry Coover finally received the recognition he deserved. President Barack Obama awarded him the National Medal of Technology and Innovation, the highest honor the United States bestows on its scientists and inventors. When he accepted the award, it was a closing of the circle. He had started in 1942 trying to help the war effort by making gun sights. He failed. But by refusing to give up, by looking at his failure and seeing an opportunity, he ended up saving more lives than any gun sight ever could. Conclusion. So, the next time you accidentally glue your fingers together, and we have all done it, don't get angry. Take a moment to appreciate the history stuck to your fingertips. You are touching a material that baffled World War II scientists, ruined a $3,000 prism, lifted a TV host off the ground, and saved the lives of American GIs in the jungles of Vietnam. It is a testament to the American spirit of innovation, the ability to take a mistake, turn it upside down, and change the world with it. And that is the true story of how the quest for a better gun sight gave us superglue. If you like the video, subscribe the channel to get new videos like this.